I found out I'm unable to give birth to my child. It's absolutely heartbreaking because honestly, my husband wanted this so badly. He comes from a big family, and to him, it's important that he has a kid. So you can understand his resentment when I told him, honey, I can't have a baby. Well, things started to spiral out of control. That's why I came here, to ask for help from you guys. But there's something I haven't told you yet, and it's pretty dark. When Rennie and I met, we hit it off right away. We were one of those couples where the sky was the limit, where people envied us for how well we got along. We support each other while he's more of an artist, I'm more of a scientist, but we still managed to set clear goals where the other could help in one way or the other. I would say the only area where we wavered a little is when we talked about starting a family. He's Latino, and Latinos have always been big family people. I thought it was just a cartoon stereotype before, but no, it's real. I can tell you, just to give an example, he's the youngest of 7 siblings, and each of them have at least 2 children, so in a way, Rennie doesn't want to be left behind. I admit that makes me a little panicky and nervous, but I just feel compelled in a between-the-lines way to do more to add to the overpopulation of that family. I, for one, actually have the complete opposite mentality. If anything, I've met my 2 uncles, and that was only about 2 Christmases ago. So it goes to show that I'm not a big family person. The death of my older sister a few years ago maybe had something to do with it. I don't know. I should check that out. Anyways, when we talk about starting a family, we do it in a very lighthearted way, because of everything I just described, and for another reason, a little more personal and a little more intimate. It was something I had a hard time telling him about a long time ago, but as a couple, we decided not to keep secrets, especially when the physical integrity of one of us could be compromised. Years ago, during my first gynecological appointments, it was pointed out that I had somewhat of a strange condition, which affects 1 in 5,000 women where the cervix is kinda small, so things such as pregnancy can bring complications into the future. When I told him about it, I couldn't help but discern a small expression of disappointment, but a small one for only a few seconds, and then went on to tell me, there's no problem, honey. It's a delicate thing, and the last thing I want to do is put you at risk. I admit that when he said it, I felt like the luckiest woman in the world, for I thought I found the most considerate man of all time, a rare species divined. So he asked me if that meant that we could go without condoms. But I told him it was better to keep taking care of ourselves, although we did break this rule from time to time. And as if by the grace of the Holy Spirit the impossible happened, being a Christmas present, I got pregnant in January. And when I told Rennie about it, he couldn't help but jump for joy and scream with excitement. I swear I've never seen an adult so excited in my life. He was like a kid in the candy shop, and I knew that all those comments about having to be reassured that I didn't have to give birth were just being polite. And here we are, pregnant and waiting for what might happen. However, I can't help but feel nervous about everything the gynecologist told me at the time. I don't know if it'll be a complication in the future when it's time to give birth. From what I've been looking up on the internet, the risk of miscarriage is minimal, but that's because the risk of pregnancy is even lower. So far, I've been taking my medicine, and I'm about to start my 4th month of pregnancy. The whole family's excited, including mine, thinking that there will be now a new family member in our family tree. My aches and pains have been pretty much under control, and I must say that the whole experience hasn't been as complicated as I first expected. Rennie has been there every single step of the way, and I was even joking with him that I should get pregnant more often just to get this kind of royal treatment. I shouldn't play with that so much though, because maybe, in the future, he'll like the idea and go down the same path of his parents. I decide to write all this for him, as a letter of love and appreciation I have for him, as I've decided to change my stance on wanting a baby in our life. At first, I was scared, I'll admit that. Maybe because of the impossibility of getting pregnant. I just felt that I should not and did not want to bring a new life into the world. But all this has changed for the better, and now I feel happy every time I go out with my friends to buy pretty clothes that I know will be staring entire photo albums. I admit I'm a little bit excited about it. However, we did not want to rush the process. We've brought neutral clothes, mostly white or orange and purple colors, unlike the rest of Rennie's family. We don't want to know the sex of the baby until he or she arrives in our arms. Yesterday, I had another visit to the OBGYN, and although everything seemed to be in order, he talked about the condition I have. He told me that there's certain risk, but that current medication can become good in such a case. However, he said to be, quote, mentally prepared for anything. And although it isn't our goal, we should be clear that these are risky. That can always happen with this. Rennie's very positive, though, and tries to make me feel as comfortable as possible throughout the whole thing. So I try not to make a big deal out of it. Update number 1. Well, I hope you guys are all doing well. I'm not. I just decided to resume these writings when it no longer hurts so much, and I feel it's time to resume it. A lot's happened since the first time I posted, 2 months ago. And I must confess, I lost my baby. I had a miscarriage which happened so fast that the following week it just seemed as if, well, I was never even pregnant. It was a terrible psychological experience, and the worst thing is that it wasn't even an accident or anything like that. It was a simple chance of life. My belly had been growing for the last month, and I was starting to feel uncomfortable every time I bent down. So I had to use extra force to pick up things. One of those days, Rennie left me alone at home, but it was only for a short time, as he was going to the pharmacy on the other block just to buy some medicine we were running out of. When I dropped the knife I was cooking with, I tightened my apron and leaned against the foundation, but when I looked down, it felt as if the knife that was right in front of me had struck me, as if something had broken out of nowhere, and before I knew it, I was bleeding. Just remembering it makes me feel sick, and to this day I have nightmares about that scene. I called Rennie right away, and even though I tried to stay calm, nothing in me could stay calm. When we got to the hospital, we were told it's too late. I cried like never before in my life, and the rest of my family joined me in crying, going through a long recovery process. I was in the middle of so many talks about what could have happened, and they all said the same thing. The result would be the same. What changed for the worse was the fact that because of all the damage my body received during this, well, it wasn't likely that I'll ever get pregnant again in my life. We decided to ask for a second opinion, as we've been told that it was impossible to have a baby now. But the other doctors told us the same thing. I couldn't bring another human into this world. It would be the worst case scenario for Rennie, whom I saw immediately afterward to be the biggest look of disappointment I've ever seen. I failed him. I felt I failed him, and this is the regret that I get that grieves me as I write this. It was a huge blow to the whole family, and having to get rid of all the baby items we bought is absolutely devastating. Almost as painful as the loss itself, as it reminds us all that what could have been. Even though the doctors told us otherwise, I feel it was partly my fault. My fault for trying to bend over. But I was told it was almost unlikely the baby could have made it even without that minimum effort. Suddenly the days seem like gray to me, although we've tried to keep it on a positive note. Or at least Rennie has done better than I have. He can come home from work with a big smile the other day, and it got me thinking that if the person who loved the baby the most can smile, why can't I? What's up everybody, Mr. Reddito here. So update number 2 came out. It was 4 months after the last update. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Today's story is a rather sad one, but hoping for a turnaround in the upcoming updates. There is still 4 updates remaining. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, guys, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, as it does help support me a lot, and let's see what's going on in update number 2, 4 months later. Well, things have gotten a little bit strange and confusing. A while back, Rennie came home drunk from work, something very unusual for him, and could not help but make inappropriate comments. One of them was, "Don't worry, we can make another baby." But the next day he felt bad about everything he mentioned. I told him not to worry, as it was the alcohol talking, but he said there was some truth to the sentence. Apparently, from what he remembered last night, there was a conversation with his friend about the pregnancy issue. At first, I felt a little uncomfortable, as I felt the topic wasn't only recent, but too personal to go around talking about with office buddies. But it was then that he told me about a new possibility of having a baby. I told him that it was impossible through artificial insemination, as my uterus had been pretty much destroyed. But he immediately corrected me, saying that there was another way. Well, I assumed he would say what he ended up saying. A surrogate womb. Paying a woman to have our child so we can finally have it. At first, I did not feel comfortable with the idea, and even tried to persuade him with the option of adopting an orphan, something that seemed very romantic and beautiful to me. It would be bringing joy into the life of someone in need. Rennie, on the other hand, was not convinced, claiming that although he liked the idea at first, he still wants a child of his own DNA, as it had always been his drama, or at least the normal family thing to do. I let myself be carried away by his words, and we continued talking about the artificial insemination plan. It's a delicate subject, and one which, well, we must be cautious. I feel strange and a little apathetic at the thought of someone else having my baby inside her, making me feel inadequate as a woman. According to several psychologists, it's a completely natural process to feel bad when you can't have a child. At least for people who do want to have them. Some say that subconsciously, if you don't want offspring, your body transforms itself to fulfill this desire. Something I rather doubt. And I don't want to believe that this is the case. Tomorrow, we will be finding out more about these alternatives, and although we feel strange, at least we can see what the future has for us. The best thing is not to rush the process and enjoy it as much as possible. I'll be picking up this conversation in a while after the talks conclude, hopefully in a positive way. Update number 3. I'm a little confused, as I can't quite understand what's been going on as we found out more about the process of artificial insemination. We learned that it's not as cheap as we assumed. At first, we thought it was pretty simple, just getting the father together with a new body. But it's more of a complex process involving even my eggs, and could run up to 4-digit figures. And our financial situation's not really good, as the loss occurred at an advanced stage of gestation. So we had already advanced quite a bit of shopping. I have even conditioned one of the rooms in the house so that it would be a perfect one to bring our baby in, something that hurts me too much to even think about. Artificial insemination was a solution, but a very expensive one, and we pondered if it would be a long time. However, yesterday, Rennie came in a bit upset, with information that according to him was going to be of particular interest to me. He had talked to some people in his office about it, which again I didn't entirely like. He found an alternative that would, quote, please many parties. When I asked him to explain, he said, one of the workers, a woman called Loretta, said she was willing to serve as a surrogate for us. She had no problem with it. But I told him that the problem persisted because we didn't have enough money for it. Well, at that point he clarified, oh no, it would be kind of a, quote, traditional fertilization. And when I asked him what the heck he meant by that, he told me to look at the end between the lines. Oh. Well, obviously, I said no. I got angry, quite angry, and he tried to convince me, saying that the artificial insemination process could be ridiculously expensive, and that it was just about putting one component into the other body, when in reality the process can be easier. At first, I thought that Rennie was simply justifying infidelity, as he was so insistent that I even came to believe he had already impregnated her, and wanted to get out of it as cleverly as possible. It was then that we had other bitter conversations. Conversations where I objected and he tried to find any far-fetched argument to convince me. When I told him about my insecurity on the subject, he pretended to be offended. I know when he lies, and told me that he would never be thinking about something like that, and that even if the insecurities was such, we could wait a time that I considered prudent to find out if he's cheated on me, and already has impregnated another woman. It would be a pretty simple, strong test of mine, but I would be willing to take it to corroborate that it was all true. However, a week later, from all the stress I was going through from overthinking, I decided to take the reins and meet the woman in question, so we set up a formal date. I've never been so nervous before in my life. We met at a local coffee shop, and when I saw Loretta, I was visibly shocked. She was black, the tallest girl I've ever seen, with an incredible afro and full, beautiful face who looked quite good, in clothes that looked very expensive. Rennie greeted her warmly, and I felt a little intimidated, I'll say that, although she tried to make the atmosphere as friendly as possible. We talked a bit, and then we touched on the pregnancy, and she said, "I decided to listen and support you after hearing your story, because I find this whole experience tragic, and it's not fair what you went through, honey." As she held my hand, taking some liberties, she also told me that her biological clock was ticking. She had no plans to have children, so she wanted to experience pregnancy more for charity than for her own sake. She also said that she was quite comfortable off and that she was doing it purely out of charity. I don't know about you, but I found the story quite strange and, to be honest with you, hard to even believe. I decided to spend the night thinking about this all, and Rennie was very clear in telling me that this should be a unanimous decision, and that if I was not comfortable with everything, it was best just to detest, and that put me at ease. But immediately my mind began to work. Doing this kind of process is not so risky, but it would involve, well, my husband and another woman being intimate. Or I don't know what the process would be like. I try not to think about it too much, but that's where another conflict comes in. And that is that the baby, well, is going to acquire the skin color of its mother. Loretta's features are very dominant, and I would have a baby that didn't look like me for the rest of my life. I don't care about the race deal at all, but Rennie tells me it would be the same as adopting an orphan, but it's mixed feelings on levels that are hard to describe. I would feel like Rennie would be a part of the process and I wouldn't. The child would be a reminder that I couldn't make it, and that we had to ask someone else just to help us. It would be a very strong process on a psychological level, and that's why I decided to talk it over with my mom. She's a woman with a cold heart, but also cold and calculated thoughts. She told me what I would prefer, as it was a huge step through rather delicate method. I told her that I wanted to make us all happy, so if I did, I could bite my tongue and enjoy the bliss of my baby. I thought about Loretta too, and the sacrifice she would be making, since it would be having a baby inside her for 9 months and then just giving it away like that. It's something just as strong. So in that situation, we both had to be prepared. I'll tell you a little more about it next week or next month when I finally decide on one of the options. It's a bit of a rushed decision in my opinion, so I'll take a breath, take a breather, take my time, and then I'll know what to prefer. What's up guys, Mr. Reddito here one more time. So the next update is not that long, but it came out a few months later, and we're about to figure out exactly what's going down. Update number 4, here it is. Well, I don't know if the decision I made was the right one. A few months ago, we ended the conversation about the pregnancy experience. It's been a while since I understand that it wasn't Rennie's plan to sleep with another woman. But now I feel a great deal of regret, as we were still in limbo of not knowing whether to have a child or not. Loretta's offer still stood, so I decided to take her up on it. She and Rennie would have a chance encounter one night, just a few minutes, all fairly controlled, and then it would just all end. We would be monitoring Loretta's status, as it was to be done precisely during her ovulation. I feel strange saying all this, but anyways, when this was all over, which I was told was a bit awkward but formal, we went home and talked about it a bit. Rennie did not finish apologizing and thanking me for the decision that he's made. I felt like crying, but every time the feeling came, I reminded myself that I was the one who decided that, because I could have said no at any time. The problem came when a month had passed and Loretta was not pregnant. During a checkup, we found out that she had not been able to get pregnant, so that's right, she had to try a second time. That one was less forceful than the first, but I still told myself and them that if it didn't work, we're going to give up now. Since I wouldn't want my husband to be with another woman any more than necessary. A phrase I never thought anyone could say. However, perhaps my nagging was overheard, since in a few days the test came back positive, and the excitement made us forget everything. Or well, at least it happened with me. Loretta slowly began to grow in size, and although it was all kept as rumors in the office, the information did not get out. I am just now on my way to see her, as it's already the 3rd month, and her discomfort is increasing. It feels strange to be in my position, honestly, and some would be grateful for it. Having a baby without going through the martyrdom of pregnancy? I almost feel like Loretta has done me the biggest favor of my life. Well, we have been a little intimate and talked about the future. She once told me that she wanted to have a baby years ago, but unfortunately lost it due to stress. It amazes me how easy and common it is to have a loss during pregnancy, and told herself that she would not relive the experience again. So she would take it all in stride. Unfortunately, her partner did not see it through and left her, which is when Loretta glowed up and improved as a person, to the point of being able to offer herself as a surrogate for someone else out of pure solidarity. A unique situation in the world, and one that, by the looks of it, will come out with a happy ending. Update number 5. Some say that sorority is one of the most ridiculously strong things there is. Caring and respect for another woman without even being your friend or acquaintance. It's something that, at this point, saved me from something big. Ignoring my previous writing, or at least the last part of the update, I say this because of the conversation Loretta and I had. It was yesterday, but it was only today that I dared to come and write it. When we saw each other, she had red eyes from crying, and for a moment she seemed even smaller than me. Weaker. She asked me to come into our apartment, and if Rennie was going to come to where we were. I told her no, and we went straight to the living room, where she took both of my hands, tears in her eyes, and she said, "What I'm about to tell you is going to hurt me a lot, but I feel you should know. Something's happened." I immediately thought it was the baby, about some sort of complication or something, but she told me it had nothing to do with it. "Rennie is cheating on you," she told me, and I froze at the moment. "He's cheating on you with another woman. I had suspicions a while ago, but I confirmed them yesterday while I was going to the supermarket, and I saw him with a girl who was talking to him very closely and touching his lips. When he came over here, I noticed how he had lipstick marks very subtly on his neck. Did you notice that?" I told her no, and she replied that maybe, well, he must have taken it off by then. But the story not only stayed there, but it also went further, much further back. He did tell Loretta to start an affair in the beginning, during the first meeting they had for the pregnancy, and she refused, confirming her suspicions that he indeed wanted something more when they talked about the whole pregnancy process. She was moments away from leaving the room to tell me everything, But Rennie, at that point, somehow managed to convince her to leave it at that, and that he would talk to me again to work things out. This was the reason the pregnancy was not achieved the first time. It was because Loretta avoided it. It was more her goodwill which made her come back for the next time. Now believing that Rennie had told me the truth when all he was looking for was a fling. She already knew Rennie's shady intentions from the office, but didn't want to believe it after hearing the story the guy had on his wife. She even felt bad, and she even considered the idea of being with him. But she told herself that she would only be doing the baby thing, and that was it. Nothing else. But seeing him with another woman was the last straw. She told me that she was angry and afraid at the same time. Felt bad for me because she felt that she was the biggest victim in the situation was me. And he was right. Well, I had a woman in front of me with my husband's child in it, and if she was going to take responsibility for it, how would the whole thing look? It was so confusing and strange that it made me want to call that son of a gun up and tell him everything. Well, we discussed the matter and I consoled Loretta, who fears for the child she's carrying in her, but I told her don't worry, that if we're going to get through this, it'll be the simplest way possible. I just hope I'm not wrong. Update number 6, final update posted by OP. Starting a family is a very delicate matter. Well, it's been a year, guys. I've had multiple updates that I wanted to say, and well, since the whole Loretta and Rennie thing, and I haven't written before, it was just because I was so busy with legal proceedings and so on. I don't know where to start. When we confronted Rennie, he initially denied everything, claiming they were Loretta's lies and that we should not believe a stranger. This outraged me, and I told him, well, a stranger is the one who's going to bring your baby into the world, so you should have more consideration for her. Followed by a bunch of insults that he could not take, so as I concluded, he blurted out this. "Oh, this is all your fault for not being able to have something as simple as a baby." I swear I exploded on that one. Although the reaction wasn't the best, I just walked out the room with Loretta as Rennie had said, well, he no longer cared about the outcome of it all, as he knew that he'd finally be able to have sex with Loretta and even have a child with her. That part did not turn out so well. The bitter part of the whole story is that Loretta, she lost the baby. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's because of the stress thing that she told me about a while ago, but I know it affected her too much. It happened to me once, but to her, twice. And the pain remains the same. She and I stayed in touch for a while and even went out a couple of times together like we were lifelong friends, bad-mouthing that guy. By the way, it seems like it's poetic. The fact that every attempt has made me have a baby has been a failure. Right now, he's just hanging out with the girl he had an affair with, and rumor has it she's pregnant too. I don't understand why he's trying to start a family that's sure to be chaotic and dysfunctional. In that sense, I feel that I should be thankful it wasn't my turn. Currently, I've become somewhat detached from the matter. Rennie and I divorced. Duh. And I had to get the good fortune that my lawyers appealed on my behalf, so that I could keep most of the stuff. I also have the backing of Loretta, who advocated for me and confirmed the whole situation. Even Rennie's family went against him, and although I've not spoken to them again, they always ask about me, how I'm doing, my new partner. That's right, I decided to get back into the dating world, which wasn't very easy to say the least. But Loretta, she got me someone whom I also hit it off with right away. He's a little bit older, and you won't believe it, but he has a 5-year-old son, who I met a few days ago. He's super cute and very polite. He treats me wonderfully, and I feel like I'll be able to get along with him very well. We talked about my condition and about the disappointment I've gone through, and he tells me that it's rather better that I went through all that because that way I realized who the person next to me was. As dark as it sounded, I'm happy now. Living alone at the moment, although I may move out soon, if you know what I mean. Starting a family is something you have to think long and hard about before you do it. And knowing whom you're going to start it with also plays a giant part. I may not be able to have a baby of my own, but I've learned that doesn't make me any less of a woman than anybody else. My life is so much better without the previous stress that I was going through. As far as I'm concerned, Rennie can go ahead and kick rocks. And from what I heard, he's on the right track, as Loretta took it upon herself to publicize the whole thing around the office, and now they treat Rennie like the most repulsive being in the world. Heck, almost to a point where I even feel sorry for the guy. But not sorry enough. I even learned that his boss treats him with a bit of contempt for everything. Now, I'm only interested in being okay with myself, and having the peace I've always deserved. I'm not gonna lie, guys, this story has me twisted and tangled, because at first I was rooting for OP and her husband. I wanted them so badly to be able to have this baby. And with the miscarriages, it just led me to believe that this was getting worse and worse and more sad. I didn't even have time in my head to think about the possibility that this guy is just a creep who was a cheater and barely, maybe not even wants a baby. Just wants to be infidelity-wise and go around sleeping with other people. So I'm very glad that the surrogate stood up for OP and told her exactly what was going on. But I would like to hear from you guys. Did you expect that coming when, well, OP's husband decides to do this? Go ahead and drop your comments down below, and if anybody's ever been through something like this, trying to have a baby, let me know how it went for you and your thoughts and maybe some advice you would give OP. Guys, thank you for joining me on today's video. I hope you enjoyed this action-packed story. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.